Hello, dear students. Today we are going to learn a new lesson from our English textbook. That is lesson number 13, Sultan Ghiyasuddin in the Qazi's court. Hundreds of years ago, in the eastern province of Bengal, Sultan Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah ruled the land. His capital was Sonargaon. Sultan Ghiyasuddin was a good ruler. He ruled wisely and well. He respected men of learning. He had a deep regard for law. Here in this paragraph, we see that we have been told about a ruler whose name is Sultan Ghiyasuddin. Now, Sultan is similar to a king. Okay, in olden days, they were called as Sultan. So, his name is Ghiyasuddin Azam Shah. And he was ruling somewhere in the eastern province of Bengal. And the capital was Sonargaon. So this ruler, he was very good, he ruled wisely and well, and he respected men of learning, all knowledgeable people in his kingdom. He respected them, and he also had a deep regard for law. It means that he followed all the rules and regulations, and he always liked others to follow it too. He walked on law. He did not do anything illegal. Illegal means which is against the law. That means he had a deep regard for law. So this is all about him we see in the first paragraph. Now we shall move to the next paragraph. One day, while the Sultan was practicing with his bow and arrows, he accidentally wounded the only son of a poor widow. So once he was just practicing with his bow and arrow, and his arrow, it went and hit the son of a poor widow. The wounded boy did not survive. Now, what happened? This widow had only one son, and the boy who was hit by the arrow, which was done by the Sultan, that time the poor lady had nothing to do. She was worried. And the wounded boy, he did not survive, means he died. Weeping and wailing, the poor widow went to the Qazi and told him what had happened. So this poor lady, she started crying. She did not know what to do because she had only one son, and that he was now dead because of the Sultan. So she went to the Qazi and told him whatever had happened. The Qazi was an honest and upright man. He sent an officer to summon the Sultan to his court. When the officer reached the palace, the guards stopped him and inquired about his business. Now, once he reached there, what did the guards do? Now, you cannot go and meet the king, right? There will be guards, watchmen, and so many other things. So the guards asked him, why has he come there? And then he told, inquired means asked, and then he told that why has he come there? What is his business? Means what work he has. That is what the guards asked him. When they learnt that he had come to serve a summons on the Sultan, they were shocked. Means they were in shock, like how can somebody tell this Sultan to come to the court? And they were in a great big shock. They did not allow the officer to enter. Now this officer, he was also worried because whatever job, the duty which was given, that he had to do, but these guards were not allowing him to enter into the palace and meet the Sultan. The officer was now in a fix, means he was now worried. The guards did not allow him to enter the palace, but he knew that he could not return without serving the summons. He had no entry inside the palace, but at the same time, he could not go like that again to the Qazi because he would punish him otherwise. So now he was thinking the Qazi would now not take him back. He had to find a way reaching the Sultan somehow. What could he do? He thought and thought. He was just thinking that if he goes back, he'll be punished. So he had to do something and meet the Sultan. At last, he began to sound the azan. Now, azan is a prayer which our Muslim friends say it, right? Like Christians go to the church, Hindus visit the temple. Same way, our Muslim friends, they go to the mosque and they say their prayers, and that is called as azan. So at last he began to sound the azan. the call for the prayer loudly just outside the palace. So, actually, if you know, these prayers are said at proper timings in the morning and in the evening. But this person, he just started saying the prayer. When the Sultan heard the loud, untimely call, he was greatly surprised. Now, Sultan is the king, and he was surprised that who was praying now. And then he ordered that the man giving the call should be brought before him immediately. Now the Sultan was also worried, like, who is this at this time? Who can pray? This is not the correct time. So he just told his guards to go and find out who is this man who's praying at this time. So it was the turn of the soldiers now. His soldiers rushed out of the palace gates, caught the officer, and took him to the Sultan within moments. Now, what did the soldiers do? They came out quickly and caught the officer and took him to the Sultan. When the officer knelt before Sultan, he was trembling with fear. Then this officer, he was taken to the Sultan. Now he had no words what to do because he is the king after all. He just knelt down before Sultan and he was trembling with fear. Means he was very scared. He was not understanding what to do, what to say. But he mustered all his courage and explained why he had given the call for Azan. Then somehow he managed to open his mouth and he started explaining the Sultan that why did he do this mistake. Then with shaking hands he gave the summons to the Sultan. Then he was very much scared and he gave the summons to the Sultan. Now summons means a letter from the court. Okay, that the Sultan has been called to the court because he has done something wrong. This officer was very much scared. He was trembling with fear and then he gave this somehow to the Sultan. Sultan Ghiyasuddin took it without making any comment. Now Sultan Ghiyasuddin, he did not say anything to the officer. He just took it. He read the summons and told the officer to go back to the Qazi. Then he took it, he read it, what it was, and he ordered the officer to go back to the Qazi. He announced that he would appear in the Qazi's court the next day. He told that tomorrow I'll be present there. The next morning, the Sultan got ready to appear before the Qazi. Now Sultan was getting ready to go to the court because he was called. He had the summons, right? The next morning he got up and he was getting ready. But as he was getting ready, he hid a sharp sword in his robe and sat outside. Now sword means something bigger than a knife. No, you can do harm to others with it. And he is the king. So he took the sword and he hid it into his robe. Robe is a long dress which the kings wear. You must have seen it. And then he kept it inside the robe and he started for the court. Now the courtroom was packed with people. There were many people in the court because everyone was eager to see what would happen. They wanted to know now the king is coming to the court and what will the Qazi do? Will he punish? What will happen? So that's why there was a huge crowd in the courtroom and the courtroom was packed. The Qazi entered and took his place on the high seat of honor. Qazi means the judge, and the judge has a higher seat. We see it in movies, right? So the Qazi entered and he took his place on the high seat of honor. In a little while, Sultan Ghiyasuddin entered the courtroom. Everyone stood up to show respect to the Sultan, but the Qazi did not get up. Now what happened? As soon as the Sultan entered the room, everybody stood up because he was the king. That was his respect. When we are in class and the teacher enters or the principal enters, we also stand. That is because of respect. Same way, the Sultan was the king of that kingdom. That's why everybody stood up. But the Qazi did not get up. He was sitting on his place. Then the Sultan stood in the docks and the trial began. Docks is a place where the criminals or the one whom are told to be done the crime are standing in that place is called as a dock. The widow presented her complaint. Widow is the lady whose son was dead. She told everything what had happened. The Qazi took note of all this. Means he was writing down what all things happened, how it happened, when it happened, why it happened. All these things the Qazi took note of all the evidence, and in a grave voice addressed the Sultan. Grave voice means in an angry mood. No, he asked, "You are guilty of causing the death of the only son of this poor widow. According to the law, you must pay a fine for this offense. I order you to do that without delay." Means here the Qazi told the Sultan that whatever he has done is wrong and he has to pay the fine, because that is what the law says. Offense means something wrong. So he said that this is the offense which you have committed, and because of this you have to pay a fine. And that also do it without delay, because the son was her only son of this poor widow. Now she has nothing left with her. So you have to pay the fine. The Sultan accepted the judgment and apologized to the widow. The Sultan then said, "Okay, I'm sorry for what has happened." Apologize means saying sorry. And accepted the judgment. Accepted the judgment means he agreed to pay the fine. He was ready to pay the fine to the poor widow. The widow felt satisfied that the offense was brought home to the offender. She was very satisfied because though she lost her son, now the remaining life she would live without any tension or worries, right? When the case was over, now all the case is done, everything is over, the Qazi got up from his high seat of honor. Now the Qazi, that is the judge, he stood up. Respectfully, he bowed to the Sultan. Respectfully means with great respect and honor. He stood up and then he bowed down because he was the king of that area, and then requested him to take the seat of honor. The Qazi told the Sultan to please be seated. He respectfully bowed down and gave his seat of honor to the Sultan. The Sultan then drew the hidden sword from his robes. Now Sultan had something in his robes. You remember? He had kept a sword in the robe. He removed that and told the Qazi. Now he says, "I am happy that you did not waver in your duty." Means the king liked the job what the Qazi did, because he did not hesitate to punish the king. The king says, "Otherwise I would have beheaded you with the sword." Means I would have killed you. I would have cut your head if you wouldn't have done your duty well. And the king says he's very satisfied. The job is absolutely well done. Though I am the king, yet you have told me that I am wrong and you have punished me. You did a wonderful job. This is what the king said. But then after this, the Qazi, he put his hand under the cushion where the Sultan was seated. Now the Qazi had told the Sultan to take his seat, and the Sultan was sitting right there. So he just put his hand under the cushion where the king was sitting and brought out a whip. A whip is an instrument or a tool which we use to beat others, okay? So a whip, like we call it as chabuk. He shows him the whip and says, "Your Majesty, I am happy because you obeyed the law." Here the Qazi says, "I am glad that you obeyed the law and you did what I have told you. Otherwise, I would have whipped you in the court." The Qazi is saying, if you would not listen to me, I would have whipped you in the court. Means he would have given the king punishment with this whip. The Sultan then got up and embraced the Qazi. Embraced means meeting each other happily, and said, "Thank God we both did our duty." So, both of them did their duty well. That was very good. Otherwise, what would have happened? The Sultan would have killed the Qazi, and the Qazi would have beaten up or whipped up the Sultan. So everyone present in the courtroom praised the two great men. They were very happy that the king and the Sultan, both of them did their duties well. So, this is the story, and we should learn from it that whatever we do, we should do it truthfully. Thank you. Have a nice day. Copy down all the hard words in the English CW book, and we'll meet soon with the question answers of this lesson.